I'm Jeremy Till, and this is Amplify. James FitzGerald, founder of OPEX, is joining us today. This man has impacted the fitness world, I think, more than it even knows. He's creating curriculum and modules within the OPEX business model that are starting to infiltrate all of the functional fitness space. We get to hear some insights from James on how he created OPEX, where he's at and where he's going, and some deeper insights to how his brain works. And really, if you know anything about James, he's a deep, insightful individual and very meticulous about how he does what he does. And we get to see some of those insights as he shares his story and his vision for what OPEX is and where it's going. So guys, enjoy this one, and we'll see you on the other side. Well, tell us about OPEX and about your grand opening. I guess y'all are moving from a previous facility, and kind of start us out. I like that smile you have on your face.
Yeah, because it's a large answer, but I'll see what my practicing my elevator pitch on what OPEX is. We're a fitness business company. We coach coaches about fitness, and we coach people directly online about fitness and in person. The company has been around since 1999. In large part, it was me to start out as a personal trainer, and we grew in Canada, and we grew online. And the evolution of the company would be to move to the United States, and that was to start really the online coaching people who are serious about fitness, and also my coaching education program. At the time, the business was called OPT. We changed the name to OPEX. Just for protection of OPT, which was down here, was originally used by another company. And so we changed it to OPEX. And we've just been growing since we've been in Arizona. This is our third facility in 5 years, because we just started off as a small lab, really, and then grew to like the typical micro gym, 2 condo bays. And now we're in a larger square footage standalone building for our staff that supports our education program as well as our online coaching, and also for on-site people that train there. So we just moved in there, Jeremy, about 2 months ago, and it's been exciting because it feels like we finally, well, I guess you always say that, but it feels like you finally have that spot, where you can dig your teeth into.
Mm-hmm. So you tell me about your staff, because one thing that I want to talk about is your team, because I know you have a very dynamic group around you supporting what y'all are creating and doing. So kind of tell me the org chart or the layout of your team.
Yeah, so we have really 3 different areas for what OPEX is currently at the day. We have a education system, which is called the Coaching Certificate Program, OPEX Coaching Certificate Program. And we have, I guess, myself, Sean Greeley, Sharon Preet, Matthew Lalonde, and our doctors. We're the conductors and the fulfillers of that program. There's 5 different modules within it, and then we have a staff of 6 people besides those folks that support the production and the systems and everything that goes with that, from technology to sales and marketing to human resources to operations. And then we have a remote coaching line, which is managed by Mike Lee and myself. And that's where we have a number of coaches who coach people in an online setting. And we have 10 coaches that are throughout the world, as well as in Scottsdale, who we have a team that we work with for that perspective, where we coach over 500 people in an online setting now for that. We do have, in terms of numbers, we do have over 1,623 coaches actually was the newest number that have been enrolled in the coaching certificate program. And then we have an on-site crew. We have 4 coaches. Some of them do some online coaching, but 4 coaches that run the on-site system, and that is a private program design model where people come in, they exercise, They have one coach who's in charge of their program, and they work out in the facility that we have available there. So all in all, we have 23 employees in that house in OPEX, and then a few others that are throughout the world for our remote coaching program. As far as the org chart, my wife and I are still the folks that paint the picture for the big pieces of stuff. Leanne, my wonderful wife, is still involved with finances and just more, looking on the outside for numbers and whatnot. And I'm still the person who just paints the big picture as to where we want to go and what we want to accomplish. And then I have some really great people with me who are on my staff team that are very talented in the areas of their specialty, and they help move the ship forward.
Mm-hmm. So you say, painting the vision of where you're at and where you want to go. Can you kind of paint us that vision about, where you guys are and where y'all are going?
Yeah, for sure. We want to make a really, in big picture, without using, terms of the mission of it itself in numbers, but we want to have, in two big nuggets, a really big impact in online coaching. We want to secure ourselves as being known as the place to go for people who are serious about fitness in an online coaching setting, where we want to make a stamp on really the market that's out there, to allow the people to see that there's a really integrity-based, legitimate business that operates with a lot of care in mind for a client in an online setting, that's built on really good principles of fitness, as well as just taking care of people really for what they want to do. And we want to make a big stamp with that with our remote coaching called OPEX Global. And then the other big nugget is we want to start operating specific facilities capable of offering what we do on site, as called our OPEX model in Scottsdale. So big picture, we'd like to see our coaches that are qualified as total coaches be able to offer what we see is really beneficial in the ID model or the program design model that we have implemented, really for my career, but currently within Scottsdale and how that looks. And that's a big, that's the second big nugget really for what OPEX wants to do over a period of time.
Yes. So when I step back and watch what you do, it's very methodical and very well thought through. And so there's a lot of processes, and I see that there's a long term with the overall, the two pillars of your business. Do you see, like, from the certification standpoint of these trainers getting certified, there's a lot of governing bodies that kind of do certification courses. Like, how big do you see that getting for you in the next 20 years?
Yeah, I could see ourselves, back to the certifying pieces. I'm not really sure where that's ever going to go, Jeremy, honestly, for the differences between states in what we have anyways in the United States compared to Canada. Because Canada does have quasi-regulation in terms of what you can do for training, personal training, almost similar to Australia and New Zealand and the UK as well. It's not really worth anything that much, but at least they say you should have to have this if you're going to teach people about fitness. But in America, it's rape and pillage for fitness pretty much. And I really don't see that changing a whole lot unless there's a massive overhaul over the next 15 to 20 years. So I see where OPEX sits is that I do see with the change in landscape of people starting to, over the past 20 years, it doesn't matter if it's been successful or not in different people's eyes, more people are conscious of fitness. It doesn't mean they know how to do it effectively or what it means or how they can get transformed spiritually, emotionally, physically through it, but I think people are more aware of it. In that case, with numbers growing, I see OPEX having a really good spot sitting in there because we coach coaches just about principles of fitness. Like, we don't make them specialists in weightlifting. We don't make them specialists to teach people to win the CrossFit Games. We don't make them specialists in rehabilitative protocols. We don't teach people, deep functional anatomy. We basically teach folks who want to offer fitness because they're inspired by it, the principles. And if you know the principles, you can pretty much take care of and help a whole lot of people with behavior, nutrition, and good exercise. So I see us as having a long-term plan built in for what the changes are for the future, because in the end, the consumer is going to be smarter, and because of this conscious awareness for many years. And so they're going to want to know why they're doing what they're doing. And our coaches will be able to tell them that, and give them some reasoning behind that.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to think about where I want to move this conversation, and thinking about, because you have so much going on within your space. And I think about, where are you now in your passion about what you're learning, and what's kind of like your hot button right now?
Yeah. I think I'm at a point, or my hot button right now is really just trying to figure out where I sit in my career for coaching. And it's exciting because I don't know if it's been really thought out or done before, but maybe I'll write a book, by the end of my days, on like what a career is in coaching and what that looks like, because not a lot of people have written that book of like what a fitness coaching career looks like. And I'm at the point where I'm trying to become a master in terms of coaching. And what that means in my mind is I'm transcending the idea of coaching. So I'm having a really exciting time of looking at myself fulfilling and coaching other coaches, and saying, now what am I learning based upon watching that. And so what gets me out of bed in the morning time now is trying to grow as large as possible with quality, so coaches can get as many principles learned from me as possible, whether that be in a scaled online setting, or it's in person, or it's basically to be in that mastery role. So that's really what gets me out of bed in the morning time now.
Okay. And then who are some influences on you in the sense of what it is that you're doing, and some of the specialists that you kind of look to for guidance?
Yeah. I have I'm a very curious person at heart, and it takes a long time for me to trust people. I don't see it as a fault. That's just my own personality. It doesn't mean I don't have friendships. I don't have a lot of them, but I'm only really close to a few people, and that's just the way I roll. And I think based upon that, I'm kind of a person, Jeremy, that learns by noticing and just observing. So everyone out there is really my mentor, because I just love watching how things work, and behaviors, and how things operate, and look at systems, and just learn based upon how things move and shake. That's really what what I look to. I guess I called him my thought leader, Bernie Nowakowski. He was a mentor of mine for 10 plus years, who helped us devise the lifestyle coaching course that we have too. So these people have passed, and so it's kind of been a sign for me just to try to find my own answers. I've got to instead of look up to have mentors that are currently at my side, I really have to point in my life right now, really look around and see exactly what answers I can find for leadership. And I think that generally is a signal, or universal signal for most people, that you got to look inside. And so for me, I've been looking inside to try to find a number of answers and use myself as a mentor, if that kind of makes sense. And then I have, the global setting as mentors. My coaches are my mentors, because they ask so many good questions that to me is like, wow, that's great learning for me, because I'm listening to them ask those questions. So, and clients, those are mentors as well. They just look different in terms of the hierarchy than people would consider mentorships,
Yes. So just kind of coming back to that looking within, do you practice a meditation? Do you pray? How do you go through this looking within?
Yeah, I think it's I think it's actually planned. So I actually plan it out where I get, space and opportunities for what I like to just call it a creative space in my mind. And so that could be, biking to work. That could be, writing design. That could be taking notes down. That could be, reading an article. That could be also just sometimes reflection, some people you may have heard of before discuss it. Tony Robbins, which I know you mentioned before, as well as Eckhart Tolle. They talk about this, conscious awareness, just breathing and really just saying like what's going on through your movie reel and your thoughts in your head right now. I think over a period of time, I've started to recognize the the healthiness around that. If you were to ask me that at 22, I'd get anxious actually with that like free space in my mind in terms of what was happening and where my thoughts were. But then over time I started to recognize, wow, it's pretty cool just to observe that stuff and let it walk by and just see what's going on and not judge it. And so I do that. So to answer your question, I plan it throughout the day really, is to have some of these periods of time where it's just reflection, and it doesn't look like, I guess, anything, or I wouldn't call it anything. I guess it's just a thought.
Mm-hmm. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. And so like, I think nature's maybe a muse in that space as well. How's your correspondence with nature?
Yeah, for the amount of time that I spend there, it's always a positive one. I really don't have any, there are things I do day to day which have to involve technology and also being in a physical space in a closed building. And within Arizona, it affords us the opportunity to be outside. But that's one of the things why we moved there is because of the sun and the ability to have sunshine and for my kids to play. But my wife and I hike this mountain route in Scottsdale 1 to 2 times a week, and I bike 25 to 35 minutes back and forth to work every day. And I try to get outside, around my work environment when I can. Not as much as I'd like to, but to answer your question, I think, Jeremy, it does have a real big part in me. I just don't know if I'm utilizing it as effectively as I could. Just as soon as you asked me, I was like, geez, yeah, the dream position would be outdoors every day, teaching people about fitness, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you recently got on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah. What's the plan there?
To change the algorithm. To be an N equals 1 of like what happens when people have watched social media for 10 years and haven't touched it, and all of a sudden they decide to. It's like you mentioned earlier. I think it's just my personality. I think it takes, I'm a slow learner, I guess you could say, in numerous different ways. And I'm very patient and methodical in my approach. I don't dip my foot in the water right away. In different areas of my life, I'm more risk averse than I am risky. I'm very passionate and progressive in fitness and forward thinking for testing and assessment and things like that, and science behind it. But when it comes to my person and myself, I'm actually I guess a little bit more recluse and closed off for that. So I didn't really find a spot when it first started really happening where I was like, oh, that's kind of my jam. That's what I would do every day. But I've seen over time the opportunity to connect to my other coaches, as well as stay abreast of the world of what's happening within fitness. It's good to be a part of that movement, albeit 10 years later.
Mm-hmm. So what's your driving? I mean, you are really creating a structure and a movement within the fitness space. What really would you say is your motivator to put the work in that you're doing?
Yeah, I think it is to really, I think a lot of things that we go after that's of value to ourselves are generally in large part, internally and individually driven. And I don't disregard the fact that a lot of my biases and my movement for my business is generally based upon my ideas and what I want to do. And I'm very careful in the selection of the path that we do go for those things, because I don't want to bias anyone else along that path if it's not interesting for them. But my big driver really is to make a severe impact on the face of fitness every day, or everything that I do really may look like chaos or a really busy state of having my hands in a bunch of different areas, but there's one connector, and it's really to show the appreciation for fitness. And that largely came from myself recognizing as a young athlete that I was very ego-driven and very self-loathing and very popular based upon my athletic endeavors. And I was smart enough to get through school, and then I had an injury and my athletic career was taken away from me. And then I recognized at 18 years of age, when I had all these grandiose dreams, that, you know, it was all taken away from me in an instant. And this was due, honestly, because I think I was not in condition enough. I wasn't conditioned enough to do the sport that I was playing, which is soccer. And I was pretty fit at the time. But anyways, from that major injury, which supports my idea of what my big thing is every day, I realized what fitness can do to people, because it transformed me spiritually and emotionally, and made me recognize that you don't deserve anything, that everything that you're going to get really is going to come at the expense of the hard work that you put into yourself and your physical being. And so that's what I want to inspire other coaches and people to do. And there's a lot of work to be put into that. And so I can only do it at my own speed, at the resources that I have to work with. And so that's what I do every day, is to try to do it through our business to make an impact and a contribution for fitness.
Mm-hmm. What, if any, books are you listening to right now, or listening or reading right now?
Yeah, I just finished When Breath Becomes Air. It was passed on to me by a friend and colleague of mine, Sharon Preet, who's co-conductor with us for a lifestyle coaching course. It's a really cool story. I'm fascinated about, obviously, you know, fitness is how it connects to life, right? And the purpose of why we're all here and what the hell we're doing. And what the reasoning is behind it. Anyways, this story is a great one for those. I'll spend only a second on it, but because it'll really get people jazzed up maybe to check it out. It's about this neurosurgeon who had all of these degrees and was smart as shit, and developed lung cancer at 35 years of age, which was very unusual for the time. And then he was a great writer, so he wrote this book about his trials and tribulations of the discovery and what he thought about for life and his new child and his wife, and, you know, how life dealt him this and what he did about it. And like, it's just a great reflection on the purpose of life, and, you know, and how it's so short and how we have to appreciate it. Anyways, I just thought it was really refreshing to get a perspective on it. And so that's what I've just been reading.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good. And then you listen to music?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the mood kind of person. I'm all over the place, but I have all different kinds of stuff that I listen to. I have, you know, I've been listening to deadmau5 really for I don't know how many years, and working out. I just love the rhythm and the beats and the number of the beats per minute that really connect to like what I'm doing in the training session. My dad, you know, had a massive impact on me because he had a number of vinyls of Beatles and Led Zeppelin and Creedence Clearwater Revival and Beach Boys, and so that was my original, like, you know, mix of music. And I really, if I was to, you know, maybe I don't know anything about music, maybe I do know something about music, but music today, or what's being produced today, is really very lower order, I believe, in terms of what music used to be, in my perspective, or the creative aspect of it. But maybe I'm just old school, and how technology has basically allowed, you know, everyone to be able to do music today. But so I'm definitely more of a appreciation of someone who gets up there with a voice and a guitar and just really hammers it home, which will speak well for your neck of the woods, because there's so many great artists that come out of there who have that capability. Yeah, so my playlist has a bunch of eclectic stuff that I listen to.
And then, so just kind of bringing people into your world, what does a day with James look like?
Yeah, well, I can tell you what I'd like it to look like every day, and then I try to like plan my day out to get a piece of that. So I love to teach every day into some way, shape, or form. So I love teaching either coaches around me, my staff as a whole, or a specific individual, you know, through exercise or program design. So I love teaching that every day. I love creating things every day. I think you may appreciate that idea too, of just what it's like to create an awesome program design, or to create things, create businesses, to create models of like where you want to go with stuff. I think that's my picture painting. It's an opportunity for me to be creative every day. I love moving every day. So, you know, I bike back and forth to work. Sometimes I train twice a day. Sometimes I do it one time. but I love exercise, obviously. And then I love learning every day. So like taking some time to read and reflect. And so those 4 areas really is what I break my day into every day. And the day looks like that, where, I get up, as I mentioned, to do a little bit of movement. I prepare some food. And then I bike to work, and then I'm generally in there from 7 a.m. till like 3 to 5 p.m. really. And evening times, 7:30, we read to the kids and do a wind down, and my wife and I just spend the last hour of the day just hanging out and watching some stuff on Netflix, or just relaxing till 9 p.m. back to bed, and then just repeat that over and over. That's really my day, what I like to do every day.
Okay. So kind of bringing this to a head, what are the top 3 things that you would say would be the most impactful for someone to apply to their lives? If you were to sit somebody down and say, if you would do these 3 things, this 20% would change 80% of your day, your life, your interaction with humanity.
Well, I have 2 really that come to mind right away, and I think that the first one, I'm not sure how to describe what the word would be, but for people to actually find peace of mind. And so what I mean by that is really just to try to, notice their noticing. So listen to their thoughts and watch the movie reel, because I think that some people don't really, to create consciousness, to be like, okay, what actually is going on right now with your thoughts? What got you to this point in time in your thoughts? What do you plan on doing with those thoughts? Are you creating judgments around them? Where did they come from? And how are you working with them? So I think if I was to teach someone, which is kind of complex, but, in one word, to be more conscious, that would be a big thing. I think secondly, definitely would be to move. I think movement can fix so many different things if you need to be fixed, or it can also, transform you and adapt people. And that intensity of the movement is largely based upon where people are starting. But I think if people are being more conscious and were to move, those would be 2 main things that I think would make a massive impact. Like you said, I'm not sure the percentages you used, but I'll use that again. That was quite good. And then the third thing, I probably have to connect it to really the first one in a different light, like a subset of consciousness, of asking, why you're here and why you're doing what you're doing. So, asking that question consistently every day, to allow people to connect to this large, maybe lost human movement of, why we're here and why we're doing things. And I think that crosses all, genders and religions and boundaries and borders, but it's a human connection on, what we're doing here. I think if people were to ask that question more so every day, that would certainly flip a number of things. How is that?
That's great. So going back to point 1, you talk about the theater of the mind, which is a term that I can recall from psycho-cybernetics. Is that a book that you've read and are familiar with? So, like, just to kind of elaborate, because that's kind of this term and getting, but how would you play with that? How do you work within your own processing of that? And then was that book a big influence on you?
Yeah, for sure. So the way that, I guess, if I was to explain it for myself, which sometimes helps it for other people, I think Eckhart Tolle described it really well. He used to call it like a movie reel that just plays in front of you. And I think if people can connect to, like, watching their thoughts and processes in a movie reel, then it's almost, it creates context, and then people can look at it and say, oh, that's fascinating, how that's entering into my head. And so what happens, for example, over time, is you get really good at it, and I call it my own power, because it allows me to sit wherever I want to sit in terms of a conversation or a thought process and still be very present. But we were having dinner with friends last night, and as one of the people were having a discussion, I was still, aware and listening in as to what was happening, but I was watching myself listening in to what was happening. So you start to notice you're noticing, over time. And then it becomes powerful enough where you start to notice the noticing of your noticing, and a third level, and obviously you can get very deep, but that's the way I like to see it, is just almost like there's a movie reel going on, and you just want to watch that. And I just find it fascinating now, to just look at it and be like, where the hell did that come from? Like, why is that being captured? What's the spark that made me start thinking about that? And it's so fascinating because I think even in the sports setting, really, I think there's a lot of, people's inabilities and, their lack of physical potential, I think, is largely wrapped into them not being able to see that movie reel, where they look at these thoughts, and the thought just basically you could see them change physically when that thought enters their head. And I think great athletes, I think they have that movie reel going on, and they just like, oh, look at that. That's kind of interesting. And they pick and choose as they need to, but they don't allow it to take over their physical being, Anyways, I think that would be a way I would describe it, I think, to most people that would make sense of it.
Mm-hmm. So, are you familiar with Wim Hof?
Yep.
Have you studied any of his protocols or practiced any of that?
Studied, but no practicing.
Okay, because it brings me back to like the central nervous system, awareness, meditation, consciousness. Is that I've been practicing Wim Hof for the last 2.5 months, and I've seen my own consciousness and awareness elevate through the processes of the deep breathing, the holding, water application. And one thing that I was aware of, I'm a little bit different than yourself. I'm a pretty high ramped individual, and I found that my nervous system was running my life, and that fight or flight sensation. And once I got grounded doing the breathing protocols, I find that in society today, you're a little bit different breed in the sense of you can disconnect, and you're somewhat of a, isolated and kind of recluse in your actions, but you're connected to people. And I look at the general population, the 99%, and it seems that for me, as I processed and learned this for myself, is like when we can get people, because I was coming back to your breathing, coming back to awareness, until we physically move, we are aware of our breath. We can't even think about the theater of the mind because we're running around like scattered cockroaches, afraid of, the next thought that might enter our brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, functional medicine, not to take anything from Wim, I think, for people, discovering him, really, because he's been doing it for a long period of time, but people discovering him, we'll see how that ends up, because it's almost like taking someone who has that practice, and trying to make it more popular and scaled. I think it's going to be very interesting where it turns out in the next number of years, especially when you start saying it's a method, because really it's human connection. I mean, deep sea divers and science, as well as functional medicine practitioners, have been doing and know about this for 30, 40 years. It was even like functional medicine, assessments where people would do breath holding techniques to dictate exactly where the nervous system sat a long period of time. And I know, back in the mid-90s, there were mentors of mine in physiology who knew about these hypoxic effects really for mitochondrial support, and how it played out in terms of the central nervous system and where it is. There's no doubt there's been yogis for hundreds of years that have been way ahead of our game in terms of breath and meditation. So I think it's just a great way to bring it to the public, almost like luminosity and different, perspectives on thinking. I think it's a great new method to discover that. The way I'm connected to it, Jeremy, is I love the physiology behind it, because I've been studying that for many years, in terms of what it does for O2 delivery at the muscles and how it connects to your parasympathetic sympathetic system and the effects of it. I just find it fascinating in that regards. And if anyone's going to do it like yourself, that's going to help support you in terms of balance, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think one of the things that we want to be cautious of, which I heard in your terminology, is that some people feel as if they're ramped up all the time, but it's just people's essence. Everyone runs on a different level, and you just want to be cautious of, as an example, giving someone meditative practices and it actually drives them crazy. because they get into meditative practice and they really actually feel fulfilled when they're connected to people, and when they also are at a higher level of, a state of running, that actually is more fulfilling for them. So it's all about perspective, because if we as a society see that these type A, fast running individuals who look like they run off their nervous system, how do we not know that they're actually healthier because they're more fulfilled running hot like that? You see, so there's always a balance to play in terms of who those people are. And I can reflect on that because I'm not that person, but I've also tried to dampen people. And in some cases, it's actually been a worst case scenario where they actually don't necessarily need that. What we don't want to have is a connection of ill health to running fast and hot. I call it having the brake and the gas on at the same time. If that's like shitty eating, poor sleep patterns, bad food, poor relations on top of a fast running person, I mean, it's just an end game. But for you as an example, I see your support as being beneficial to running hot. So all the supportive things you have around you allow you to run fast. And I think someone who's efficient like yourself will get a lot more things done with a balance like that. That's just my perspective.
Yeah. Well, I think what's really interesting with Wim Hof and what's happening within that space is that it's coming to a larger consciousness as a whole. I think that's what's interesting about the method. And so it's kind of like if we're seeing something on a mass level start to get instituted, we're seeing a shift in what people will be able to digest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see that as being, positive, but it's been repeated for centuries.
Yeah, it's kind of like nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new. We've been processing for millennia and recreating it. I mean, it's like even from a standard of intelligence. We talk about maybe so far back they were more intelligent than we are today, and there's these dark black periods where we forget a whole thought and idea process that wasn't occurring, and then it comes back to consciousness, and it's like the evolution of humanity as a whole and where we're going in the next, the 21st century, because, with brain science and quantum mechanics and all this process, I mean, we're on the cusp of a new era of intelligence, I believe, but, we might just be getting back to a touch of what, recent history was.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, amen to that. I mean, it just parallels what I think like Wim Hof, as an example, has just, brought to light some really important things and puts it in a method where it can connect a whole ton of people. And if that connects a whole ton of people to consciousness, then that's fantastic. But in the end, these principles are around us and amongst us, and it's just up to who wants to pick it up and to run with it, I think that's the key point. I think one of the things that we'll run into, if you think we're on an intellectual, growth period, we're going to run into the connection between automation and machines and our intelligence over a period of time. And I've been doing more research and just trying to understand that at a very layman's level. And that's kind of fascinating, because I've been trying to connect that as to like, where does fitness sit in 20 years when artificial intelligence will control a whole bunch of things that we do, and what does that lead to? So that's kind of fascinating. As to your point, where does consciousness is the only thing that is a massive separation between automation, machines, and humans.
Absolutely. Have you seen the oculars, the Galaxy? Have you put those on and experienced it 3D? A few days ago, I was in Tom's. They have a shoe store here, and I put on the glasses and went through a 3D experience. And I'm telling you, as we do the research, we hear about where technology is moving, and then you experience that 3D technology. I mean, it is mind blowing, because I didn't see it in the rough edges of the production of the video, but I saw the future. And what people I've heard speak about what is coming with 3D technology, and it was just, I saw the future, and it was like, holy cow! When I can sit in a OPEX seminar through my glasses and will visually see a 3D image and experience, and when you turn your head, you can see the side of the classroom and the other students in there. I mean, it is like, holy cow! In 5 years, our experience through this technology is going to be, it's going to be warp speed.
Yeah.
So this
It's fascinating.
It's exciting. It's exciting with the potential. So
Yeah.
well, that's good. Kind of bringing it back to, I just want to bring it to an end for new, technicians. Or I feel like, and you can say this, I feel like OPEX is really a journey that people find when they enter into health and wellness. They might have started on one breadcrumb and led to another, and then, your systems are very, I would say, are complex. But it's for this. I see that a lot of people that have been in the space that want to go to the next level find OPEX. Do you find that that's the people that are coming into it, or now they're coming from, all types? What does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think you've just described who is sitting in front of me now. Who we kind of look for as well is really that coach who wants to know a little bit more about why they're doing what they're doing. And I think we have a lot of answers to that, because the answers that I give them are actually no direct answers. But I kind of lead them on a way to try to find out how to get those and to make sense of things. I think that's one of the things that I love doing, is to have a coach in front of me and explain something, and then, which is not my knowledge. I just pass on hundreds of years of information really in a course where they're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. And then now they can go out and they feel like they can be fulfilled and to do what they want to do. So yeah, I really do see those people are in front of us now who just want to just take it to the next level in terms of what it means for coaching.
That's great. Well, James, I just want to say I appreciate you and have the highest respects for what you've done in this space and the impact you've had on this space. And even speaking to you towards the future, I believe OPEX will be a fundamental pillar and foundation of health and wellness in the United States and global moving into the future. So I'm personally very excited to see not only the next 5 years, but the next 20 years and the impact that you will have. And I believe you will be known as a legacy in the health and wellness moving us into the 21st century. So a lot of respect coming from this side.
Thank you so much. I hope that's the case. I won't stop until we do make that impact.
Perfect. All right. Well, I appreciate you, sir, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Jeremy. Take care of yourself.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Amplified Podcast. You can find more at theamplifiedpodcast.com. Our social links to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join us in conversation. Let us know what you're thinking and how we can best service you guys. We will see you again really soon.